go. Welcome back, everybody. Give me one moment as usual to make sure things are set up properly, make sure my audio balancing is okay, and then we'll get right into it. Checking to make sure the stream is up on my phone. If there's a better way to do that, let me know. This is my approach still. Nope, looks like it's good to me. So we'll give it about 30 more seconds. Yeah, maybe 15. I'm feeling impatient today. Yeah, I don't feel like waiting. Let's just get to it. All right, I tried to work on a little opening spiel here. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome back to another week of Future Group Friday. For those of you new to the stream, my name is Cheese Doodle. I am a member of the TagPro Steering Committee and Development Team, which is tasked with planning, prioritizing, and building new features for TagPro, which is a free-to-play 4v4 online capture the flag game you can find at tagpro.gg. The Future Group is the name for the steering committee and the development team together. So basically, the stream exists to give you updates on what we're working on behind the scenes, make sure that everyone knows that we're still working on this next release and trying to get it out the door, and then planning future things as well. So plan for this week, same general outline. We're going to go through development updates to start with because we're still trying to finalize this next release. As you can see, it's not live quite yet, but we've done a lot of things over the last week that I'd like to go through. I also want to spend some time talking about the discussions that we've been having along the way, because this week, development-wise, there was a lot, but there was a lot more going on. That was just making sure we do the right things with those updates. So I want to talk about those a little bit more than I usually do. And we'll go from there. So at the end of this, obviously, we're going to go back through and build another feature. I have a couple lined up that we'll pick from, and then we'll call it good for the weekend. So I'm going to pull up the easiest starting point, which is just our actual development updates for the last week. Today is the 24th, so we're looking back to the 17th, which starts us off with a update and then a finalized branch for the open skill decay and activity checks. So just a refresher for anyone who was not here while we built that feature specification. We want to make sure that players on the leaderboard right now are actually active, actually playing the game. So we needed to have a way to confirm that, basically saying if you are on the leaderboard and you're not playing games, you shouldn't be on the leaderboard. So taking people off who have been not playing for a while or who have not been playing enough over the course of the season as well. I'll talk through what those standards are in a minute. But that was the first thing to get us started. We switched from that over to dynamic tiers and how those are being presented. So this is another thing that we built on stream about a month and a half ago by now, talking about the number of tiers that there are in each region. So obviously different regions have different player counts. North America, obviously the most active. Europe and Oceania struggling to have games at all right now. But if we also are adding in a neutral flag queue, that would be a different set of tiers. So we needed to have it be pretty much customizable, or not customizable, automated, so that the number of tiers that a region has is scaled to the number of players that that region has. So if a region only has 50 players, they should not be spread across 8 different tiers, obviously. So I started on that branch, and then I spent a lot of time on that branch because it got complicated. So last week I had talked about we were very close with everything, and that is true. We built all of this stuff that was ready to go, and I'm talking about the tiers specifically here. I built this new tier system that expanded, contracted it. It was all working very well locally. Then I got a database dump where I basically the current data on tagpro.gg, make sure it works with the thing that you just built, and it didn't. So it was working great internally with itself. It was not working well with the switch from season 0 to season 1. So right now on the site, we have a lot of back-end data saying this is when you've played a game, this is how many games you've played in the season, this is where the cutoffs are between tiers, all of that stuff. When we tried to plug in all of those documents to the new code, there were a couple of mismatches. So most of my time after I made that branch was spent making sure things actually lined up properly, and I'll talk through more of those discussions in a minute. So that was next thing up here, after that, we had a little bit of a back and forth about the decaying, when a player should stop decaying. So we wanted to set a floor for the skill score decay. So if you start at a certain number, you shouldn't be able to decay all the way back down to the very starting point to have to work your way back up. So we wanted to set a floor that you can only decay down a certain amount, so that when you come back, you're still on the upper side of things or the lower side of things, depending on where you stop playing, but you're not completely starting from scratch. So again, I'll get to that in a minute. I think I talked about this last week on stream. We removed the win probability and average skills from the launcher because we don't want players deciding how hard to try in a game by the probability that they're going to win that game. So you'll see how likely you are to win after the game, 52 to 48 or whatever it was, but you're not going to see that before you go into the game. That got merged in. Just some simplification of how we're presenting information. Then I had to start the branch for the ranked flares, and I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about these this week. Not showing you what they are yet, I'm keeping that a surprise, but we had to go through a couple iterations of how to actually award those. And actually, let's just talk about that now. So right now, if you are on the leaderboard, the idea is that you would finish a season at a certain level and you would get a flare for finishing at that level. And that works fine for season 0 because we're just trying to get things up and running and working properly, but it doesn't really work for an incentive system in the future. So we are adding a slightly different way of earning flares based on how many games you win at a certain level. So just to break that down a little bit, if you look on the right side here, you've got 8 different tiers, and we'll use 8 tiers for this example because it's the easiest. But if you start off playing ranked games and you win your first 5 games, your first 5 games would contribute toward earning the flare for the ranked ball tier. After those 5 wins, assuming you are above the ranked ball level, you would need to win an additional 5 games at iron or higher to earn the iron flare. And then the numbers change a little bit. I'm just going to keep using smaller numbers for easy example, but say you want to earn the bronze flare, is now an additional 10 wins on top of the wins required for a ranked ball in iron. So basically, it's to earn really high level flares, you need to win a lot of games, but you need to also be above that, or at or above that tier level to earn that flare. So if you win 100 games, but all the games that you win are still only in the gold level, you're never going to earn the platinum flare because you were never in that tier when you won those games. So it's sort of requiring you to kind of fill up the bucket, so, if you will, so that you can't just jump straight to earning this flare right off the bat. Because think about the start of the season. If it starts with 4 tiers, the worst players in the game are going to be down in gold, but maybe they're actually going to end up in rank ball at the end of all of it. So you start in gold, you would have to earn the wins required for every flare below your level before you can actually have wins count toward the level that you're at. So it's just a more established way of deciding who's actually at what level, because right now, if you finish the season and in your very last game, you just jumped up over logistic map over dad into tier 1. So you're like the 42nd ranked player, you're in tier 1, and then you get the tier 1 flare. It's not really a great indicator that you are a tier 1 player compared to somebody, I'm just picking names here, like Enervate, who was in tier 1 for months and kept winning games there. So it's a way of saying, okay, you got there, and then you also showed that you deserve to be there. So now you get to have the flare that represents that level. The other half of that conversation was saying, once you've earned that flare, what do we actually do with it? And this conversation stemmed from the current way that we handle rolling win rates. So think about the axe flare, the rolling 300, 55%, 65%, 75% over the course of 300 games. That system worked fine when it was first added to public games because it's motivation to play more often, it's motivation to win your games, which was all good until it became toxic, but that's a different conversation. But now, if you go and join a public game and somebody has an axe, do you go, oh my God, that's a really good player? Or do you say, I wonder when they got that axe because this person's trash? Like, there's a little bit of both of that, and I'm guilty of that myself. I have an axe and I'm not above 75% right now. So what we wanted to avoid is win rate flares, or ranked flares specifically, losing their value over time by not actually meaning that you are a certain quality of player. And so we had a couple suggestions. The obvious first thing that came up was, well, let's just do a different flare every season so that you can just earn a different one and you'll know what season you were good in. If you crunch the numbers on that, 8 flares per season, actually 10, because we have a different flare for 1-3, 1-2, and 1-1. So 10 flares every season. We're thinking 4 seasons a year, probably 3-month seasons. That's a lot of flares. We don't really have the capacity to be building 40 new flares every season. Hopefully that's an obvious thing that we can't be doing. So how do we make these ranked flares valuable? Hello Thanos Ball. How do we make them valuable? How do we make them something people need to earn, but not also become something that people don't respect that you have earned? And so the solution we've landed on, and I'm in the process of building this right now, is keeping that fill the bucket system where you win games above a certain level to earn that level flare. When you earn that flare, so say you needed 30, I don't know what the actual numbers are. So you needed 30 wins at platinum or higher to earn the platinum flare. So you got that done, so you earned your platinum flare. You now are the owner of that flare for the remainder of the season. So no matter what else happens during season 0 that we're on, you would have that flare. Nothing can take it away, even if you drop down to gold, because you earned the wins required at or above platinum. When the season ends, 2 different things can happen. You keep it for the off season. Off season should only be a couple of days, probably at most, maybe even a couple of hours if we're good. We just want to make sure on the back end things are working properly. And maybe if there's like a holiday, we'll say, okay, no ranked for the holiday or something. Not an established conversation that we've had yet. Just we have the ability to not have ranked to be on for as long as we need it to be to get things cleaned up on the back end, basically. So you'll keep that flare for the full season and whatever off season there is. And then the next season, some players will keep it, some players will not. We're turning off ranked. Go enjoy Christmas or whatever. So at the end of season that you're on, at the start of the next season, some players will keep the flare, some players will not keep the flare. And the way that's determined is going to be looking at season-long activity. So I mentioned earlier we had a decay branch and a activity branch to say, okay, if you haven't been playing enough, we take you off of the leaderboard. With that check, if you fail that check, so you don't meet the activity requirements for the season, and that requirement we're currently setting at 15 games per week for the duration of the season. That is not as much as it sounds like. Everybody that you're looking at right now is well above, even for this longer drawn out season, except for I think maybe this one, and even that might be above what we're at, 15 games per week. So it's not going to be that hard to hit these standards, I promise. But basically, if you finish the season at or above that threshold, then the flare that you earned that season on the right side here is retained in the next season. So if I finish season 1 and I earned the platinum flare and I was active for the entire season, I also keep that platinum flare for the entirety of season 2. Now, if in season 2 I do not get back up to platinum, maybe I cap out at gold and I can't get to platinum level, you would lose the platinum flare at the end of that season. And so what that's meant to do is incentivize playing at a high level to earn a better flare, incentivize playing often enough to stay active to keep that flare, and then not allowing flares to get stale or lose their value, because if somebody has a high level flare, they had to have earned it in the current or previous season. So it doesn't have that problem of the axe where in 3 years from now you'll say, oh, they have that flare. They probably got it in 2025 when the game was tiny and terrible. So it doesn't mean anything. So it keeps that value even as the player base grows or contracts over time. So hopefully grows. We wanted to add an additional incentive on top of that, though. That wasn't quite enough for us. And I think this came up a while ago on Discord in the competitive server, talking about some kind of unique flare that you can earn in a season that cannot be earned in future seasons. And so I mentioned already that 10 flares per season, 4 seasons per year is too many flares. That doesn't mean that we can't do a smaller number of flares unique to a season. So what we currently landed on is each season that we run, including season 0, we're going to pick/make a unique flare and award that flare to anybody who met the activity requirements for that season, and that will be a permanent acquisition of that flare. So if you have that flare, it'll say, yeah, you played in season 0 of ranked TagPro, and that'll go across all queues, all regions. I think for season 0, we're going to set it at just 1 game because we didn't announce these requirements ahead of time, but it would be that 15 games per week standard in the future. So to break that all down in simpler terms, you have to win a certain number of games at or above a tier to earn the flare for that tier, and then you need to be active for the whole season to earn a season-specific and one season only flare, and lock in whatever ranked flare that you earned for that season. And so we'll get those numbers visible on the site, so it's not like, oh, how many do I need? What's my cutoff for earning this? It'll all be very clearly posted for you to see what you need to do that season. And that will allow us to reward people with something they can keep forever, and also motivate people to get a high level, to get a cooler flare that they have for recent performance. So that was the conversation on the back end, and the thing that I'm mostly done building right now. If you have any thoughts about that, obviously share. You guys aren't shy with that, so I look forward to hearing from you. But I'm pretty happy with where we've landed on it for now, and we will see how that shakes out. So that was number 3 on the development stuff. Then we had some more back and forth on the decaying, making sure we set the lines in the right spot. Then that got merged in. Oh yeah, the notification system, I had to get that going as well. So right now, if you are in a season that only has, say, 5 tiers, and enough players join that there actually need to be 6 tiers, it recalculates that every morning. If it has been more than 2 weeks since the start of the season, instead of just changing the number of tiers, we're going to notify players that they have 5 days until the tiers expand, because we don't want players waking up in the morning and finding out that they've gone up or down over and over. So we want to schedule the expansions so that if you're going to be moving down a tier into a new one, you know it was coming ahead of time. It's only going to happen to fringe players getting pushed down, and so it shouldn't be overly disruptive. If it contracts, we just do that right away without a notification, because you either stay the same or you go up a tier. No one's going to complain about that. But we also will have a little indicator here where if you hover over it, it'll say tiers last adjusted on this date. So you know, oh, did something happen? You can check, yes, it did. 3 days ago, the tiers expanded. So got that in and merged. Just some cleanup of where the tier boundaries are, how to make sure that we have players in every tier, not having empty tiers. There's now up-to-date information displayed in these counts and in these percentages. So it will say, if it's like 0.1%, it will say 0.1 to 0.3% with 3 people. These will all be accurate all the way down, and the number of tiers that the region actually has will be shown here. So if there is no tier 7 and tier 8, you won't see these bottom 2 rows. They'll be removed, and the 100% will be here. So you'll know exactly how many players there are who are active. I actually should talk about that too. A lot of stuff happened this week. For activity checks, I talked about what you need to be on the leaderboard and to earn that flare over the season. We have, and this was controversial, a slightly different activity check on the back end than the front end. And the reason that's important is that with the front end, we want players to stay active. We want them to be motivated to stay on the leaderboard and all of that. But with those standards, we want it to be a little bit more relaxed so that you don't need to be playing every single day kind of thing to stay on the leaderboard. But if we have players who are like kind of active during the season, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're reliably in the queue to be building matches around them. So there are 2 different calculations for activity. The one is what you're going to see on the front end, which is they're going to earn a flare, they're going to be shown on the leaderboard, and they can keep that flare in future seasons. And on the back end, it's saying a little bit more specifically, have they been playing this week? Do they have like 5 games in the last week? Have they been playing more than 7 games a week and they've played in the last 2 weeks? I think it is. And there's one other check in there as well. But basically, is the player actually joining the queue often and playing? And if the answer is no, we don't include them in the calculation for how many tiers there should be, because we don't want the situation where there are a bunch of players playing 3 or 4 games a week, showing up on the leader, or I guess it would still be 15. I'm losing track of the numbers, so just don't put too much weight under those. But basically, we don't want players who are only playing the bare minimum to get the leaderboard impacting the calculations for the number of tiers, because then games would not be happening at those levels. So it forces the tiers to be calculated around the players who are playing often. For season 0, if we use the current numbers that we have right now, I think North America would be 7 tiers using that calculation. So it would crunch people up just a little bit. And we also, I think we talked about last week on stream, the distribution of tiers is going to be skewed down. So there are going to be more players in the lower tiers than the higher tiers. So it's going to allow those lower tier games to happen more frequently, and also increase the exclusivity, if you will, of some of the higher tier games as well, which hopefully will be a good balance. We'll have to fine tune that a little bit as we see how it shakes out, but I'm feeling pretty good about where it landed based on that conversation. So that was that. Then we've got more notification stuff, making sure that you don't get the pop-up more than once if the tiers are going to be expanding. You just get it the one time and that's it. What else? Finally got to merge in the end of game handling. I think I talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. At the end of a game, there's some inconsistency in where you actually get sent. Do you go back to the joiner? Do you go to the homepage? Some players have been playing ranked games and they notice they end up in a casual game after for some reason, even though they never queued casual. It's related to that issue. Sometimes if you're in a group, you might get kicked back to the home page. That's related. So just all the end of game handling. I think right now if you refresh at the end of a game, it doesn't send you back to the joiner properly. I forget all. There were a bunch of edge cases. Basically, it's all handled together now in one function instead of a bunch of different functions trying to do their own thing. So that is done and merged. We've got the branch that added the actual flares in here so you can see them during the season. Spent a bunch of time on this flare. I think it's going to be pretty cool, but I'm not going to spoil that. What else? Just some updated branches. Yeah. Okay, so that was that. Then there's something else we talked about. Put a little list here so I could keep track of everything. All right, we talked about tier expansion issues with the current data. We're partially delayed because the existing data didn't mesh well with the new format. That is fixed now. I talked about integration of tier expansions and the activity checks where you need a certain number of games over the season. How to earn ranked flares. We're filling up the bucket approach. I got that. Oh yeah, we're still kind of stuck on one little thing, which is how to display at the end of games how much you went up or you went down during that game. Are the EU servers still running? Yes, the EU servers are still running, Thanos. So we want, when a game ends on the scoreboard or around the scoreboard, we want to be able to show players that they gained or they lost a certain number of skill points during that game. So +3, -3, whatever it is. We still haven't landed on where to actually show that. There's a little bit of back and forth internally right now trying to figure out, do we have it as a column on the scoreboard? Do we have enough space on the scoreboard to do that well? We have a couple mock-ups that are, I mean, not terrible, not fantastic. The other option is, do we pop it out and have like a second scoreboard that's just with the player tiers and their skill adjustments? So if you have thoughts on that, let me know. I don't know. We're honestly torn between the simpler version that doesn't look quite as good, or the slightly more complicated version that looks a little bit better, but doesn't really fit the flow of the scoreboard. So I don't know. We'll see where we end up on that. But that's an ongoing thing that we just have to make a decision on at this point and move on, frankly. The fix for skill score creep is in. I think I talked about that already. The other discussion we've been having is related to the resets between seasons. So right now, obviously, if you've been paying attention to the skill score, you can see that the top is like way ballooned up compared to where we thought it was going to be. I talked about this on stream last week. It's related to how we calculate your gain or loss after a game. We forgot to standardize the number of points that each player gets. So we have this the baseline, you won the game, you get this number of points, but we also tacked on, if you were an extreme stat outlier, you get a little bit of a bonus on top of that. And we'd forgotten to standardize the overall skill score gained in that game and lost. So there's extra skill score being put into the system basically, and over time that creates this ballooning effect that you're seeing on the scoreboard now. So that's been fixed. in the future. So the discussion now was, how do we reverse that ballooning between the seasons? So we need to reset or soft reset some of the values that go into this calculation here. I think what we landed on was collapsing the fringes in and then trying to smooth out a little bit more of a curve in the middle. I don't have that in front of me right now, but it basically just pulling everyone who got thrown up way up to the top back in, so they're still ahead of everybody else, but they are not way out in front of everybody else. So kind of the first corral, but they're all together at that level. And then we're going to reset confidence, I believe, between seasons. For those not familiar, confidence is basically how confident the skill score is in your actual ability. So you have a skill value, which is, it's called mu, and then you have the confidence in that skill value. So we're going to be bringing the mu value down to those boundaries, and we're going to be resetting the confidence so that if you are at the very front but you start losing a bunch of games, it's going to go, oh, maybe you weren't ranked where you're supposed to be, and it will go down. Or if you just win every single game, you'll pop back up pretty quickly, but not to this degree. We shouldn't see players at this skill score ever again. Well, not ever again. If the game gets larger and there's a lot more skill score to go around on the edges, it'd be polarized more. So it's possible, but with the current number of players, the top should be like, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200, somewhere a lot lower than it is now. But yeah, so that was also going on. We're also talking about other things that need to be reset between seasons, like win rates, for example, or win streaks. Sorry. Oh, nobody's on a win streak right now? Jeez. No win streaks. Okay. So resetting that between seasons. We also had to figure out what to do with maps between seasons in terms of map voting percentages. We have pick rates right now that go to the map test committee if they want to see which game, when they're head-to-head, is being picked more frequently. We want to make sure that number gets reset between seasons so that they can look at season-specific pick rates and then also see historical pick rates. So we just discussed how we were going to implement that and built the ticket for it. I think Orchid's taking care of that soon. That was that part of it. Also, I put a note about the AWS outage. I don't know why I decided that was important. For those not aware, Amazon Web Services went down for most of a day. TagPro does not use Amazon Web Services. We did trial them as one of our, I think, 4 options that we were picking from. DigitalOcean, Vultr, Amazon, I think Google had something as well. But we landed on Linode/Akamai. Akamai bought Linode a while ago, I believe. It's been a really good decision, I think, in my opinion. It's been really stable on Chicago. The routing has been a lot better as well. Players farther away are getting a good path into the server. So if you were curious why TagPro was not down while a lot of other things were, it's because we don't use those Amazon Web Services. What else? Oh yeah, there was another post on the subreddit. Let's see, what did that say? It was talking about not enough players to support 2 lobbies and complaining about players in casual being pulled out of their casual game into a ranked game, which is a perfectly valid complaint. And my response, and I just want to say that on stream as well, is that that's not the expected implementation. I've mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I think the current system for pulling players from casual into ranked is semi-broken. Right now, if you get pulled into a ranked game, it tells you a minute in advance and then it pulls you out at the end of that minute, which is not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to say, okay, sometime in the next minute you're going to get pulled out, and then during one of your upcoming respawns, so if you pop and you have those 3 seconds while you're respawning, you're supposed to get pulled out during that time because the game has found you a sub to take your spot. So it's supposed to be, you get the warning, and then whenever you pop next, you get pulled out, somebody else gets pulled in, and they spawn when you would have spawned into the game. A different fix that was required accidentally broke that system by requiring games, the actual game, to be in the joiner looking for a player for 5 seconds before it pulls anybody in. That was not what we were trying to do. We were trying to make sure that players had to be in the joiner for 5 seconds before they got put into a game, because it was creating split lobbies. So if a tier 1 game finished and one of the players in that tier 1 game had casual selected, it was taking that tier 1 player and putting them into a casual game right away, then the 7 remaining Tier 1 players were getting put into a ranked game with or without that Tier 1 player. It didn't matter, because either way was disruptive. So it would either not take them, make their own game with a different person, and then the Tier 1 player would also make a different ranked game, or it would make the casual game, and then that Tier 1 player would make the ranked game with those other 7, and they would leave the casual game. So in both cases, casual lobbies were being created with players who were never going to actually finish that game constantly. And so that was a much worse experience for casual players, because pretty much every game they were getting for a certain time period was going to be a 3v4 or a 4v or 2v3, which is bad. So we put in that fix and it worked great, but it also kneecapped the immediate substitution process, because those games were not getting substitutes while you were respawning, unless it happened to be overtime and you were spawning for more than 5 seconds. So that is fixed in the next release. It was a bit of an annoying thing to track down, but it is working, and we'll get that in soon. So keep posting about things you're mad about. I know it's kind of frustrating for me to read these things, but it's entirely valid. So I do want to hear these things still. So please keep doing that, and we will keep trying to fix the things that happen. That was it for development stuff. I did have a request from a moderator to reiterate some of our current policy on chat, and I don't really want to get into this much on stream right now, but for those not aware, we implemented a rule, and this is me speaking as a moderator, not as a future group. We implemented a rule at the very, very start of, I'll call it the world's eye on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Basically, the rule was, don't use TagPro as your forum to talk about this. Have your own opinions about what's going on there. It's not my job to tell you what to think about that stuff. It's obviously a very complicated situation, but we don't want players derailing games to have conversations about that, basically. And so we implemented that policy. We warned players who were constantly doing it, and we did start applying newts to players who did not follow those guidelines. For some reason, well, I know why, but that's cropped up a little bit more recently. Players are going back to having those discussions. So if someone just wanted me to mention that we are still enforcing that policy, please don't derail games to talk about that conflict. Thank you. That's all on that. So that is it for the back end stuff going on here. I have the form that I put up every week talking about open-ended. Basically, if you have a question for me, I will answer it. I didn't get any responses this past week, so I'm not going to answer any questions, but I will post that form in the chat here. Feel free to fill out, and I will get to your question next week. I'll also put that up on Reddit with the breakdown of what happened on stream, and make sure that we get to that. So what next? I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh, the feedback tab. I was like, we're not supposed to go to building stuff yet, right? Okay. What is this? Where am I? Open. New. There we go. Okay, so we got a couple of things this week. Let's talk through what people want us to do. Make some tickets if it's good, and delete it if it's bad. Starting with Coolio. Coolio? Is there... I'd like to know if that X is silent or not. I don't know why it would be. Maybe it is. I'm going with Coolio. Show an icon next to a player's name to indicate that they are writing something in chat and not AFK. I have a couple thoughts on this. Number one, I see why they're going for it. It's nice to know that somebody is or isn't actually there. My counterpoint is, functionally, if they are typing, they are AFK. They're not playing the game because they are typing a message. So I'm not sure... So what is gained by this feature, I guess, is my question. It's good to know, because you know the player isn't unavailable. They're still watching what's going on the screen, maybe, but they're not participating. Like, I'd be afraid of a situation where you see a player and you see that they're typing, so you play the game differently because they are typing, as opposed to them just being AFK or waiting for you to make a move. I could see a use for this in something like a private game, like a Gravity lobby, where maybe you're having a conversation with someone and you don't know if they are typing or not. I don't know. I'm not convinced that this is actually a positive thing to add to public games, because the only thing you would do with that information, like, you're not gonna, if you see somebody typing, you're not going to stop playing to wait for them, are you? And if you are, is that even a good thing that you are? Like, because I feel like this is more likely to get players to stop playing or to not play than it is to actually provide the information in a benign fashion manner. I don't know. Any thoughts in the chat on that one? I'm kind of leaning towards no on this one, but it's got a couple of upvotes, so. This could also be a discussion that we have internally, but I'm going to say no, I think, unless somebody changes my mind real quick. How do I say this? Justification is understood. Fortunately, this seems more likely to encourage typing mid-game and or waiting for chat to happen instead of playing the game. Functionally, a player who is typing is AFK in their game. The AFK indicator does not come up when you're typing, no. The other part of this that I'm thinking of right now is related to the code of conduct. If you look at the AFK section, where is this? In the AFK section of the code of conduct, you actually have spending a significant amount of time typing non-productive messages in chat. So the actual rules to the game for being AFK do include typing. So according to that, you can still be AFK while you're typing. So functionally, a player who is typing is AFK in their game because they are not participating in the game. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna submit that and move on. Add mini games to the Maps tab. Yeah, I'm not opposed to this. The implementation is unfortunately a little bit more difficult than you might think. Because I think what people like to know about mini games strongly revolves around their settings. Like, you can look at a map and you can say, oh, that's cool, but you don't really know what it's actually doing necessarily. Let me pull up an example. Like, if I look at, I'm forgetting what our maps are now. Crap. What's the name of the big, man, if I only had a maps tab so I could see the names of the maps. I think I just proved my own point, or their own point for them. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with, we should add this, and then maybe you could have the settings available on hover. I kind of walked into that one. Yeah, we'll go with planned on this. We'll make a ticket real quick. Let's do this. Oops. New issue. Okay. So the request is show mini games. I'm just pulling up a ticket over here. Relevant candy post. Okay. Show minigame maps via the maps tab. And then add a tab to the maps. Let's call it page, I don't know. Add a tab to the maps page listing the current mini games their name, and image. On hover, display the settings applied to that minigame. Yeah, good enough. Because we don't like you know what the settings are for these maps already, so you don't need to know that. But I feel like for minigames, it's really important to know what you're actually doing when you get there. So that's good enough for me. That would be an enhancement. It'd be a semi-high effort thing to add because we don't really have a way of supplying that data to this page, so it'd be a bit of a pain to make, but I see the appeal. So ticket has been submitted internally. Just gonna copy that. Okay. Spectate different game, choose spectated game. Hi. Hello. When queuing for ranked, I like to watch the ranked game currently going on, but when I tick spectate, the joiner can take me to either a pub or a ranked game. It would be nice to be able to choose which game you are spectating somehow. Ranked system is very nice. Love the way it's laid out and the fact that it's so simple to use. Good stuff. Steam when? I'll answer that in a second. So I have great news for you, Rain. This is actually a thing that we've planned and built right now. It is waiting to be rebased, which basically just means that it was built on the foundation of a certain branch of code that worked and was stable. And then something else was built also on that same branch that was stable. But the other thing that got built needed to be merged down into the current thing that we're planning to push to TagPro. It got merged down before the other thing. And so when that happens, sometimes the base changes a little bit. Certain functions or certain files are slightly different than they were when this branch over here started to work off of it. And so you need to change this branch to make sure that it's compatible with the one that it comes down to, so that when you bring it down, you don't overwrite the changes that this other one already brought down. So that's the only thing standing between what you're asking for and the next release. It should be pretty straightforward. Sometimes they can get a little dicey, but the plan is still to have that included in the upcoming release. I think there's already a feature request for this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I think it's related to spectate something. Allow spectating. Does it allow spectating? Yeah, I think I'm going to merge it into here because this is related to the same thing. It's not exactly the same here, but we are adding this, and it's the same feature that we built, so I think it's close enough for me. So I'm going to merge that in. And that should be good. There was another question on that, Steam when. So I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the big three, which is our current development roadmap. So the big three are the three features that I decided needed to happen before we could start to actually market the game to a larger audience. Number one is the ranked release, which we are day by day away from completing right now. That was the biggest one of the three probably, because you can see the complexity of the thing that we've built here. So step one was ranked matchmaking. Step two is an in-game shop. We already have all of the flares ready for the shop. We have other creatives that are going to be going into that. That is the next thing on the docket. Shouldn't take more than a few weeks, a month maybe, to build that one. And then step three for the big three is the Steam release itself. And so part of that's going to include some site redesign, making sure it looks a little bit nicer and getting all the creative set up. But the Steam release is the third thing on the list. So we're pretty much done with number one. Number two shouldn't take too long. Number three should not take too long either. We have already tried bundling the site into an Electron app and it worked well, and that's all you really need to do to get it up on Steam. We're probably going to spend a little more time to make sure it works well and make sure it's actually a good product to put up there for free, obviously. But what else was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, making sure that we have the Steam games compatible with everyone else. So no matter where you're playing from, Steam or your browser, you're in the same lobbies playing the same game. We just want to make sure that works well. Hello, JJ's God. Welcome. First time chatter. There should be betting on ranked games like TPM. I'm not flat out opposed to that. Obviously, you need to have some sort of currency system, and I'm not allowing money to be the bets there. We could do like a tag coin thing with the in-game shop. Yes, I don't have a problem working through a plan for that. Submit a feature request for that. Maybe we can spend some time on stream making it friendly and fun and not destroy anyone's life. So next feature request, make Seek Bar interactive after replay ends. Thank you for submitting this ticket internally, assigning it to what? Okay, they just why did they do this? This was submitted last week to make the Seek Bar work when the game ends. We said that we were going to do it, and then they made a ticket saying, thank you for saying that you were going to do it. Okay, this is, of course, I don't know what this is for. This is confusing. You meant with tag coins, not okay, good. So feel free to submit a ticket for that, though. We can definitely do that on stream. Put a reference for controls, hotkeys, and spectator mode, like Z for zoom, C for center, etc. Some kind of legend to reference without having to go to a new page with a guide. I think. Yeah, I don't know, Grant. I'm not going to spend any time on that. I think we had a feature for something like this already. This is pulling out something in the back of my brain with legend. Gotta figure out what word to look up. Spectating controls button legend. Spectating controls button legend. So yeah, when you join a game, the chat does say all of those things, I guess. I'm gonna merge it in because this is pretty much the same thing. There we go. Yeah, okay, good enough. Boom. All right, that was everything we got there. How are we doing on time? Only 45 minutes in, good. So, next up. We have two feature building options. I think we're going to do both of them, but we're going to start with the big one, which is actually going to be a rebuild of something that I made a long time ago. So just to set the stage for this, back in 2023, May of 2023, I built a feature related to a calendar on the TagPro site that would allow people to set up events, schedule them, allow the development team to say when actual events are going to be happening, and basically just a system that would let people know when things are happening in the game. And so that feature request, I still think it's a good one. It was never able to be prioritized because it's a pretty big undertaking, but I feel like especially now as we get to a point where communication is such a big deal, and things like the current Halloween event, like is it going to start, when is it going to start, I should talk about that. It would be good to just have a way to paste on the site, here are upcoming things that you might or might not want to take part in. And so I want to revisit that feature request, talk through some of the specifics on how we would do that, what it would look like, and then hopefully we can find a way to slot that in to our timeline going forward. So I'm going to pull this up again. This was written a while ago, so don't rib on me too hard for it. And we're just going to talk through what and how this should be adjusted as we go. So we'll run through what it is now, then we'll go back through and we'll talk about changes. The plan was to add a new tab, calendar, to the homepage, and then split in half for logged in players the news section. So right now this can take up to 4 entries. We're saying, okay, we're going to move this down and only have 2 entries at a time and have a calendar above it. Then, if you're logged out, we would get rid of the donation thing. we would move news over, and we would put that same upcoming events right there in the middle so that we keep that tutorial available for players who are new to the site. Calendar. Add spectator chat. Spectator chat is already planned, Bloons War Master. We have a feature request in for that. Spectator to spectator only. You will not be able to talk to players in the game because you'll be watching on a 10-second delay, but we do want the ability for spectators to talk between each other while they watch. And I said I was going to talk about Halloween. Let me do that real quick. Basically, with the Halloween event this year, I want to run old events again because they're fun and people get flares and all that, and it's fun to be in this Halloween spirit. But we need to make sure that the code is actually stable to run that on. So it's day by day. Can we get this release out the door? If the answer is yes, then I have no problem running a Halloween event for a few days leading up to Halloween. If the answer is no and we can't get it stable, then there's not much we can do about that. The reason we can't do it on the existing code and then do the release after Halloween is because the existing code involves a bunch of hot fixes to stuff that came out after the last release that we just needed to get it to work properly while we built the actual solution. And those hot fixes are not compatible with running events in casual games. So it would be casual only. Ranked games would not have Halloween events. If you queued for ranked, you would just get ranked games, but casual games, it would still be the first 15 minutes of the hour the way that you would have it before the ranked release. So I'm trying really hard to get that to happen. I was up pretty late last night, but we're not quite there yet. So it's going to be day by day. You'll see the post if it comes up in time explaining all of that. There would not be any new Halloween flares this time around. No, we just don't have the time to build a new event right now. In the future, yes, we'll go back to that once the Steam release is up and everything. But before then, we gotta get this game in a better spot before we can do that. So back to what's in front of me right now. We want to have a couple of events that you can see on the homepage, whether you're logged in or logged out. If it's an active event, like the event has already started and has not ended yet, a little dot kind of drawing attention to the fact that that event is currently going on. So if you wanted to join in, you can. On the calendar tab, so we're adding a new tab up top for this. You have a 2x7 grid, like your standard calendar grid, basically. Sunday through Saturday format, nothing fancy there. And you have the option to switch between a 2-week view and a 4 to 5 week view with arrows. So basically just building, and there's probably something we can use for this. We don't have to build it from scratch, but building a calendar basically on the site so that you can see all the days of the month, whatever. The part that's actually relevant is that we want players to see where they are in their time zone and where events are in other time zones. And if you're not familiar with development stuff, time zones are a nightmare from a development standpoint. It's doable. It's just really not fun. So that's going to be probably the hardest part of this, is making sure the players in one time zone are seeing things in the correct time zone when they're happening somewhere else. A couple of design ideas, basically how it would look. You'd have a title saying what is the name of the event, when is the event, and then what actually is going on in that event. So it'd start off with a little blurb, and if you want to read the whole thing, you could pop it up and see all the details in a little module that would pop up, or module. Then, if there are two events at the same time or with overlapping times, you would show concurrent events, click for more info, so you wouldn't show either of them in a popped out view until you clicked on that, and you could see what's going on. Now this is where it gets a little fancy. I wanted to add a way to see or to notify yourself when you're going to have something happening in the future. And so the only way to do this is to either get permission to email people or to integrate TagPro and Discord more so than we have already. And then if we did that, we could have like a Discord bot send you a message that says, hey, your event is starting, as opposed to sending an email. I'm not sure which direction we would go with that right now, but we do have the option to do either of those things. So in the monthly view, same idea, just more things up there. And this is the part where I want to do a little bit more on the discussion side. So things that we want to see on the event are who submitted the event, who approved the event, a link to where the event is happening or what you need to know about it. If it's a Twitch thing, if it's a Reddit thing, if it's a group link, you got the notify me button. And then you've got all of that. Yeah, all of that together. I'm kind of reminding myself as I go here. This is the part that's a little harder. Sorry. So submitting an event. So the reason for this section has to do with, it's a community, obviously. Not all the events that happen in the community are driven by the future group or driven by like the moderation team or the MTC. Like there are, for example, league games is a really good use case for this. If you know there's a game happening on a Wednesday night, the league is the one running that thing. It's not the TagPro organizers, if you will, organizing that event. So we need a way for the community to submit events to that calendar to say, hey, this is a thing that's happening in the community. So if you are interested in that thing, now you know that it's happening. And so that should improve players being able to see that the league is happening, even more so than just the streams that pop up. It should help with organizing like testing sessions for the MTC. There are a lot of use cases for this, but all of them or most of them require some sort of submission system where you can say, I want to have an event, please put it on the schedule. So we can't just have open display, because then you're going to get pick a sumball putting the N-word on an event within 30 seconds probably, just because the internet is the internet. So you need some way of saying, here's what I want to do, here's where it's happening, here's when it's happening, please allow me to have this thing. And then you would need a team of people to look at those and say, yes, this is fine, or no, this is not fine. My initial impression is to just use the mod team as the approvers. We could probably also use the monitor team because it's nothing sensitive in that. That might be something that we start with it because we have that infrastructure set up, and then we transition it to a separate committee or something. I'm not too worried about that right now, but if you have thoughts on that, obviously feel free to share. But basically, all the requirements that are listed out here would be what you submit when you want to have an event. So you have a title, you have a description of the event. So let's use an example. Let's say that the thing that you were running is the season 37 Super Bowl, the championship game of North American League TagPro. So you would say season 37 Super Bowl. You would say maybe the two teams who are facing off, their seeds, the players on the teams, and then where to tune in with a link. Just where to tune in, like the name of the streamer. You would say the date and the time of that event. So maybe it's happening Sunday night at 9 p.m. and it's going to run for 2 hours, we'll call it. And so in the description, you could also say awards will be presented on stream. There's going to be the cappies afterwards as well for superlatives. Just like anything that's going to happen, you can put it in there so players can see that and know what is going on there. Then you have a links section where you can paste in the stream link, for example. So maybe Balanka is streaming, so you can paste his stream link. Then you could have text on that where you can put his name to be hyperlinked instead of just having it be a raw link, and then submit for review. So this is the one that says, I put it as moderators already here. So submit your advance in as far in advance as possible so that it can get reviewed and approved. And then this would go to, for now, just the mod team, and they would say approve or do not approve. Part of this that we were doing was to not show rejected events. I think that's pretty straightforward. If the event isn't approved, we're not going to show it on the site. But I think the challenge was, if you are a moderator and you're on the site, how do you see that there is a request for an event? Does that make sense? Like if you like, would you only allow moderators to approve these events from a non-TagPro setting on Discord or on Slack? Or would you also allow them to go to that tab and see pending events that they can approve or deny from there? I'm not super opinionated on that one, but that's one thing we have to discuss probably. Would need some sort of way to make a group days ahead of time if you went that route. Yeah, I'm not sure a group link's a great example. I think you'd have to, if it's a public event, it would probably be a public group. So you could probably just do the public groups tab as your link, and then you would just go to the groups tab and you would see the name of the event. It's not a foolproof solution, but I don't know. That's the kind of thing where it would be better to kind of try it out with a simpler approach, and then if there are ideas when we get there, then we can implement them. Yeah. So one other thing here was allowing a little bit of back and forth on the event. So maybe they submit an event, but it's got like a word in it that shouldn't be there. Like they accidentally, I don't even know what I'm talking about. If they said something bad in there, but the event was fine, the mod could edit the entry and say, okay, this is approved, but it's not approved with this word in the description. So just get that word out and then send it through. Basically just making sure that instead of just denying things for little tweaks, we can just make the tweak and put the thing up there for that person to reduce the need for back and forth with that. If denied, a small blurb for denial. I think that would be presented as an insight message. For those not aware, moderators have the ability to send a direct message to any player in the game, where the next time you access the site, you get a pop-up that says, this is what somebody wants to tell you. I can show you that on stream real quick, just so you know what I'm talking about. But we can use this to notify players that their game was, or their event was or was not accepted. So let me try this out. Oh, come on. This is an example message. And now, oh, it took me straight to it on the page where I submitted. That's really funny. Basically, it looks like this. Important message for your name, and then whatever the message is that was sent to you is displayed right there. So we have the ability to type any custom message to people. They can open a ticket if they have a question about what it says, or you can just press OK and continue on as you are. Hey, who's that guy? He looks cool. So yeah, we can do that. We can just say like, hey, your event was denied. Here's why it was denied. Feel free to submit with a different detail in there or whatever, and then they can fix that on their own. This part's a little complicated. If the event is denied, they can resubmit it. So we have to preserve their submission, which isn't actually hard to do. It's just a document. So we preserve that so it pops up again, and they can start from that template instead of starting from scratch when they want to resubmit the event. If they have already submitted an event and it's been approved, we want the ability for the organizer to edit their event. So they can click an edit button and say, actually, I want to change this detail. That change would still need to be approved before it can go through. We also would allow collaborators. So if you have like 3 people are hosting and all 3 of them are equally responsible for it, one person can submit it, but they can add the other 2 as collaborators. Low priority if it's hard to implement for obvious reasons, but just allowing it to be a little bit more open. And okay, this is the part that I was working up to. So granting a trusted role only visible on the back end. So this is a lot of workload for the mod team to be handling on their own. And we just talked about on stream 2 weeks ago, reducing moderator workload. And so I think instead of putting this whole thing on the mod team, if a player submits events somewhat regularly, we could give them a trusted role, which just says they don't have to get approval for their events. If they start posting things they're not supposed to be, we can just remove that role and they don't have permission to post without permission anymore. So that allows things like a league commissioner, for example, who is beholden to the league to get this approval. They can just submit all of the events for that season, all the games that are happening, without having to wait for the mods to go back and forth on that. Didn't really look at the back end. I think I wrote this before I actually knew what I was doing with code. So that's there. We still get a notification when a trusted person submits a request, but it just already goes through and it can be removed if needed. And then last part, on the homepage, if there are multiple events, you say what they are. If there are too many events, you just say plus X more events happening in the next 2 weeks, just to give players that information. So basically, we want players to know that things are happening. We want them to see when they're happening have the ability to get to that thing when it happens, and the ability to not just let people post anything and have it show up on the site. So that is the hydrate. Thank you. That is the premise that we're going for. Initial thoughts before I jump into edits that I think we need here. All right, let's pull up the home page real quick just to see what we're looking at. My first concern with this revolves around the adding a tab thing. So right now I have a relatively large monitor here, so it looks like we have plenty of space on the fringes. Not everybody has the same luxuries. Some people are very small monitors. Maybe it looks more like this. They might not have a lot. When you get too small, it wraps the headers onto a new line. This is awful and should not be the case, but it is. And so we need some way to ensure that adding in another option is not making this happen for a lot of people. I'm not sure we could really afford to axe any of the current tabs unless you could make a case that the player search tab is too long a name. You could also make the case that the competitive tab might not be needed if you add in this new calendar feature, because you could keep this page and you could have this page exist, but instead of having it here, you just have it linked in the calendar event that's relevant to it. I'm not sure that's a good solution because there are still times where there's nothing happening, but players might want to find the league. So I'm not sold on that solution. How near term is the site makeover? It's kind of a when we can thing. It's supposed to be in line with the Steam release, so technically very soon. I don't know the breadth of the redesign that we would be getting done on that timeline though. We have a lot. I think it's like a 65-page document now of potential changes and tweaks to the UI and all that. But we also have a plan that's mostly along the way of describing what the kind of the feel and the vibe and the aesthetic that we're trying to go for, and then just hiring someone who actually does this to build a site around those parameters, basically. So two different answers to that. The part where we're just tweaking things is kind of happening as we go and will happen with the Steam release. That bigger design, it's more when that ends up shaking out, probably not by the Steam release, just being realistic there. Mostly has to make sure you don't spend a ton of time and thought on this for it to be redone in like 6 months. Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point. If you're talking about the headers here, we might not have this system, and that's a completely true statement. So I'm gonna follow you on that one. Thanos Ball says just make a drop-down tab at the end if the viewport gets too small, kind of like a dot dot dot, and then all the other tabs kind of thing. I'm not opposed to that. But back to here. It's rare that we have, sorry, just joined. You said there would be season 0 flare for tier 1-1 and tier 1-2. Yeah, so for season 0, I forget if I mentioned this at the start or not. I talked about that bucket filling system where you earn more wins and you get more flares for different ranks if you're above that rank. But that's not going to happen for season 0 because we don't have wins by tier. So for season 0 only, whatever tier that you finish in is going to be the flare that you earn for that season. I think it's just going to be the remainder of season 0. No, hold on. What did we decide on there? I think it's season 0, and then if you met the activity requirements, you also keep it for season 1, following that same plan. But the other part of that is that everybody who played a ranked game in season 0 is going to get the season 0 special flare that you will keep forever. So that's everybody, not just 1-1 and 1-2. Everybody's going to get a flare if they played ranked games. And then going forward, if you want to earn a certain level flare, you have to win games at or above that level to get that flare. Excuse me 1 second, I need to sneeze. Wow, okay, sorry about that. Where was I? So, presentation of this. I think that I'm okay with the current plan to have 2 posts and then 2 events that are happening, because it's very rare that we have 4 actual posts that need to be like high priority. So I think just keeping the most recent 2 is fine. Do we want to try to explore a design related to this over here with it, or do we want to leave that alone? Because this, I mean, this is frankly awful in my opinion, but there's not much we can do about that right now without a larger discussion probably. Whereas this is like a nice container that we can use as we see fit. So it's a little more edit friendly, if you will. I think I'm okay with the current thing. And then if you're logged out, I think this image is a better one to display. If you're logged out, it currently shows the tutorial, which we need to keep. So we would just get rid of the donation thing because nobody who's not logged in is going to donate. Put the news over there and then put the calendar in the middle. We could also do a conditional thing where if there are no upcoming events, then we keep the current 4 and keep the current layout here. But if there are events, then they take over that space. So I think I'm going to make that edit first. Whoa, that's ugly. Where am I? Yeah, okay. Oh God, I can't find my spot. Players who are not logged in. Players who are not logged in. There we go. If there are no events to display, revert to the current view, question mark, or provide link to the calendar tab to see future farther away events. So that's there. And then with the calendar tab itself, I have it here that we start with a 2x7 grid just to show the next 2 weeks, and then they can expand it to 4 to 5 weeks. Do we like that, or do we think that that's unnecessary and you would just start with a whole month view? I don't really see the benefit. I mean, I guess it's more concise, which might look nicer, but like you already have a whole tab for it. I don't really know what you gain by saving space vertically on that. So I feel like I lean towards just showing a monthly view. Oh, I think here's what it was. The approach for showing the more zoomed in view of just the 2 weeks was so that you could expand what the events are a little bit more. So you can see here, it's laying out all those details for what you would see on the 2-week view. So you have more vertical space for each item. And then if you switch to the 4-week view or the 5-week view, then it only shows the title and the date. So there's no other details about the event, no description. It's just saying in the future there's an event here. So I think that's actually a good thing to keep. If you disagree with that, let me know. But that makes sense to me. Clicking an event in either the 2-week or month view leads to a pop-up with all the above details in full in addition to the following. So in this little 2-week preview, you're seeing the title, you're seeing the time, and you're seeing a start of the description. But that's it. So you have to click on that event, you get a pop-up with all of the details, which what we talked about already was the player who submitted it, the person who approved it, links to whatever or wherever it's happening, and then the notify me button. And we could probably have the notify me button on the smaller version as well. Just thinking about if we get that working fine and it's just a little bell. Yeah, that's a pretty minor thing to add. So let's get that added in here. Editing this is just awful. I should have done this in the Google Doc. Oh well. Clicking on an event in either the 2 week. No, I want this here. Current week plus next week view. There we go. Notification bell. Okay. Question from Balloons War Master. Oh, from Grant and then Balloons. Does the approval name need to be public facing? Not sure it matters in the front end, so might just be clutter. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I'm trying to think if there's a reason. Like, would it be good to know as the person who submitted it, who approved it? But what would you need to know that for? Like, you're only going to be complaining if it didn't get approved, and you're only going to want to reach out to them to say thank you, I guess. But like, you can just say it. I think I agree with you. There's nothing to gain by that. I think actually part of it was like an accountability thing, probably, but I'll not worry about that right now. As long as the data is there somewhere, we can see it. It doesn't need to be front end display. I agree. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Balloons War Master says, we're still on the flare thing. If I finish season 0 and 1-1, I'll get the unique flare for 1-1 that will last until the end of season 1. If you met the activity requirements for season 0, I believe that is the current plan, yes. Which is 15 games per week over the course of the season. So if you're already in 1-1, you're probably already above that cutoff. But yeah. All right, next up we've got notify me. So yeah, with the notify me, we should probably add in this Discord thing. So right now it only says offers a prompt for an insight or email notification. And then how far in advance you want to be notified. So if the insight notification is selected, the player receives a pop-up the next time they access the site within the requested time frame. So if they wanted a 24-hour warning and they log in anywhere between 0 and 24 hours before, they get that pop-up just once saying your event starts then, and then got it and show me. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. The email I think is pretty self-explanatory. It would just send a notification to them at that time period saying your event starts at. We should probably add this in though just to make sure it's clear what to do. This is just awful to parse. Okay. If the email notification is selected, the player receives an email at the designated time with the same title as the insight notification. And then we also wanted to add a Discord notification. This is assuming that that if we get to this, we've already integrated Discord authorization or linking of accounts. Insight, Discord, or email notification. If the Discord notification is selected, the player receives a direct message from the bot we haven't built yet with event details at the designated time. Whoops. So this does assume that the player has linked their email or their Discord rather. So we just need to add in a little extra consideration, basically saying, oh my goodness. So I just don't offer the option, basically, if they haven't linked their Discord to their Reddit account. So that's that. What else can we tweak here? So that's notifications. We got a trailing thing now, whatever. Above the calendar, submit event button, pop up containing the prompts. I think this is all fine. You got the title, description, the date, start time, and then a link. I'm still, with the link, Grant's got a point. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think of what kind of events are there that happen. You've got Twitch streams, obviously. You've got like the community nights that we run on Discord, where you wouldn't be able to do a group link, but you could still link the Discord channel, and that's fine. So I don't see a problem with that. Would we want to set any rules around what kind of things can be submitted before? Probably would need that to be built. Like, we wouldn't want any like personal promotion, basically, of your own Discord server, for example. Like, you can't have using it as an advertising tool as opposed to using it as a like, I don't have a problem with using it, like for example, the competitive Discord is unofficial. So like, I don't really have a problem with someone saying, okay, we have a tournament that's happening in this server. Like, I don't think that having it in your own server is a problem, but there would need to be some sort of vetting of that server before it can be used as the ground. Like, say, I'm thinking of like the OPH thing back when that whole thing blew up with the North American League, where you had a league with a team, and that team had a server, and things were happening in that server that the league did not approve of. So now the server wasn't allowed by the league. I think you'd need a similar oversight where the game is now the core of it, and then the satellite server needs to have some sort of standardization, I guess is the word, with the rule set of the game. Like, you can't have a place where there, well, you can have a place where there are different rules. You just need to be clear that there are different rules. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to say, oh, go have fun at this event, and then you show up and it's like slurs being thrown around. Like, obviously that's not a thing we want to happen. How do you pre-vet that without going, you'd have to go there yourself and look around and say, okay, this looks fine, or it does not, which is just, I don't want to call it a slippery slope. I feel like that term's overused, but I'm concerned that if you're doing that, you open up the ability for players to just not care, because they can just do it in their own server and still promote it. So I don't know, I'm kind of torn. I think that you would need to have, I don't like this. I'm gonna say this so it's out there, but I don't actually like this solution. You need like a moderator in that server with some ability to enforce the rules there, but that's just a terrible solution, because now the workload's going up for the mod team. They're adding in their responsibilities as Discord moderation. Temporary, but yeah. So then the counter is, what do you do if you don't offer the ability to have it in your own server? And so if you're going to have an event on Discord, it has to be done in the official server. I mean, we already have the ability to make custom voice channels and to make text channels with those voice channels. We don't have like an announcement thing, because if someone's running an event, like a tournament, for example, they would want to have an announcement channel where they say, everyone go here, everyone join this voice channel, everyone watch the stream here. Like, there's information about the event, basically. And you can't do that if you're only offering text channels. So you'd need some sort of stage, and Discord does have stages. So maybe we could have the Discord bot that we talk about that's going to be sending people direct messages. Could it also be set up in a way that it configures a stage and it sets the permissions of the person running it to post to the stage or to speak on the stage, which would just allow them to do the whole thing from the official server, which is good from an engagement standpoint because it promotes use of the official server. I worry that it wouldn't quite be the level of customizable need that an event would have. But maybe it would be, because it's really, you have the announcement channel and you have voice channels. What else do you need to run an event, right? That kind of covers. Like, can you think of an event that would need to be run on Discord that cannot be run using an announcement channel and voice channels? And maybe a general channel for everybody to type in. I feel like that covers most, if not all, of the things that would happen. Let's run through some common things. Masters tournament would work fine. Super Bowl wouldn't even need Discord because you would just post a Twitch link. If the map test committee was hosting a testing session, they would just link it to the map updates channel, so they're good. Community nights has its own section. You've got gravity stuff. Maybe they want to have a gravity shift night where they invite players to play gravity shift. They could have an announcement channel for that and a Discord if they wanted to, or they could just post the group link because they have that long-term group running. So I feel like that would be fine. See, I think I've talked myself into not allowing unofficial servers and OFM tournaments over a week or two. Yeah, I think. Yeah, long-term events would be a little bit more of a challenge because you wouldn't want the calendar to be filled with this like 10-day event block. Like you'd need to say like an event for signups closing or something like that, and then it is what it is past that. In terms of when to delete all of those channels, I see what you're saying. I feel like that can't be that hard to configure with a bot. You just set a timestamp that says this is when it gets created, this is when it gets removed, and anything that happens in between, go for it. I feel like that's pretty doable from a Discord bot standpoint. So yeah, I'm gonna say that the problem with that is that if you have overlapping events, how many different things do you allow at once? Do you need your own category for it? Do you have just the channel for it? I think you'd need their own category so that it's a separate thing. I just worry that's not scalable. Like if you get to a point where there are like 5 events happening at once, you can't just. Yeah, I think you'd need to have the event be something that can happen without Discord at that rate. Like it need to be optional. You can't force players to go to Discord to take part in your event. Can you? I mean, we can do whatever we want. Is that a good idea? I'm leaning towards no. It's not a good idea. Because why do you need? I feel like everything I'm thinking of, I'm just trying to figure out, is that because that's the only way to do it, or is that because that's just what I'm used to doing it with? So I'm trying to fight through some internal bias here and saying, do you need a Discord channel, or do I just want a Discord channel because I'm used to doing it on Discord? What does an announcement? Yeah, with the Masters tournament, it's like you have a spreadsheet in the Masters tournament, and everything that happens was based off of that spreadsheet. But there was also a lot of DMing people and making sure that they were in the right group and that they were playing the right game with the right players. And that just could not have happened without Discord to organize it. So how does that work? I've talked myself into a corner here. I'm really not sure how to get out of this one. Yeah, how are you saying, okay, go to this group and play this game at this time? There's no... Like the other thing I'm thinking of is, like, does this piggyback off of the Friends feature where you allow direct messaging on the site and then you just remove the need for Discord for coordination? But even then you lose like that communal chat where people are asking questions and where people are saying, don't call them an event master. That's a different thing. Because a lot of what happens with events is people are typing in like the general chat and saying like, oh my God, this is fun, or this is terrible, or what do I do? Or somebody help with X, Y, and Z. You lose the ability to do that if you're trying to do it all through direct messages on the site. And yes, you have group chat, but you'd need to have some sort of like in-site staging ground where people can go and chat before they go into the actual lobby. Like, I just feel like it doesn't work until we've built an internal site, native to the site, like tournament thing that we have not built. Yeah, with voice channels, people would be on Discord anyway. Yeah. So let's go back to the start here. The barrier that we have to not allowing people to use their own server is moderation, right? Scope creep. No, let's go back to the basics for a second and make sure we didn't miss anything important. So we're saying we're going down this rabbit hole because we are worried that individual or unmoderated Discord servers could result in the game promoting something that it's not supposed to actually be promoting, which is true. We don't want, like, I don't know, pick an SFW stuff in a server and be like, oh, we'll come here for this tournament, and then it's just flooded with stuff. And we had said that that was bad because if you wanted to moderate that, you would need to have a moderator run that thing, which is fine as a rule. Maybe you just don't allow established Discord servers, like it has to be a new one. And then it's not like a long-term content problem. I don't love that either. Why can't people just be nice? It'd be so much easier if we didn't have to moderate things. I'm also working through in my head if we had like a designated events server where we just said, if you want to host an event that requires Discord, it's not going to be in the official Discord server. It's going to be in this other server that is optimized for running events that need Discord. I think having endorsed public events that involve engagement just need to be in the TagPro server. All right, okay. Because I don't want the situation where there are multiple events happening and the official server is just flooded with all these extra channels that are just creating clutter, basically. But if you had a server that was specifically for events, you could have a different category for each event. Just delete or hide the category when the event is not running, and then anytime you join that server, the only things that you see in that server are active events. So if you join and there are no events happening, you just have the general channel. But if there is an event happening, there's a whole category for it, There is a permission set up for whoever's running it. There are voice channels. There are text channels customized to the people who are running it because we can give them permission to make whatever they want in that category. So all you really need to do is have a server with the mod team and the dev team in it that allows the person who submits the event to, it gives them a category, it names the category, the title of the event, and it gives them full admin permissions of that category to make servers, move players between voice channels, and all of that. So you're still requiring Discord to take part in that event, but you're not requiring vetting of pre-existing Discord servers. And you're not creating clutter because the only things that are in that server are active events that you could be taking part in. So even if you didn't want to check the site, you could join the server and say, I wonder if there's an event going on, and you could see. And even for like a 10-week OFM tournament that you talked about, you could just have a long-term category in that server for that event. I feel like this is workable. Am I losing anybody here? Yeah, I'm talking myself back into using Discord for certain events. I think it's okay with that premise. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know. As long as it's not a burden to moderate. Well, yeah, that's the thing about it, though, is that if it's in that server that we being the mod team own/run, we could have our own auto moderation set up for it. We can have our, like the Dino bot, which flags certain messages and that stops spammers. Like we can have all the same protections that the official server has, just also in that other server, so that it's mostly automated and just occasionally needs somebody to stop in and do something about something else. So I'm liking that solution. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down real quick. Where do I write that? Yeah, you would keep the app mods, keep all of that stuff, so it's the same. Yeah. Where do I list this? I think I'm just, because this isn't like a TagPro thing as much, it's just like a separate consideration. Other considerations, where are events allowed, where are events able to be hosted? So we're saying create official events server with a single general channel. When an event is approved, a Discord bot. So you would need to require, if you want to have a thing done on Discord, you would need to have a linked Discord account. So if you want to run an event on Discord, you need to have your Discord account linked, and you need to be a member of the events server. Discord bot sets up a category in the events server and grants admin permissions to the submitting player in that category, can add, delete channels, VCs, text permissions, etc. Not able to remove players from the server, but can block players from their channels. So if they like wanted to ban somebody from their events because they worked against own team in a tournament, so they can say, okay, you're not allowed to play in my events anymore. I think that's okay to let them block there. I'm not creative enough to think of what all you should be able to put in the links. So yeah, streams is the easy one. Event server, easy. Subreddits. That's an interesting question. I think the nice thing about subreddits is that we would be able to take a look at it first before approving. Do people still host events on subreddits though? Is that a thing? I feel like that's not a thing. Because it's a TagPro event. So the only thing you'd be doing on Reddit is organizing the TagPro event. You don't have the voice channel ability, which we were worried about. You have a place to talk about it, I guess. But if you're going to do that, how many posts would it need? Like, you could just have a single post on the TagPro subreddit and all the discussion there, right? Like, if it's a multi-post thing, what would those posts be about unless it's like lead up to the event, advertising or promoting the event? I feel like we're doing that workload for them by allowing the calendar to have that event ahead of time. So I'm going to say on the links section, we should have a list of links that are allowed, basically. Like, where can you allowed links include Twitch streams or other stream platforms, official event Discord server group link, yeah, I need to go back and like undo all of my auto mod stuff on Twitch. I had it set up like super strict because of the bot thing that I was doing, where I was just running the bots and then leaving, and I didn't want my chat to turn into like a hate speech platform or something, because I don't know what Twitch is all about. So I put on like the max filters for everything because I wasn't going to be watching it, and I still have too many things blocked in there. Sorry. If you want to explicitly list the type of links, you can put. Yeah, so we would do pre-filtering for that. Ensure pre-filtering of links. Do not allow submission if a link is invalid, so that they just know right off the bat, okay, I tried to submit this, it wouldn't let me submit it because my link is invalid. I have to change my link to be something else. That's fine. What other kinds of links would somebody try to submit? Yeah, I get worried about things like the my own site thing. I know like Anam built that TagPro dev where he was showing his, or the European League like stats for the season. I don't think that would be an event thing though. Like, it would just be like an other links. We don't have a way to do that though. I mean, in the description you could say like, look here for more details. If they put their own thing there, we'd have to have some sort of moderation of that, where it's not just some shady link like you said. But I feel like we could handle that case by case. Like, if somebody's linking a shady site for their event, the event itself probably isn't going to be approved. See, if they're linking to like a bracket, or I'm going back to the Masters tournament, like a spreadsheet where it's just like, here's where all the things for the tournament are going to happen. I think as long as we can see that ahead of time, it's fine. There should probably be some degree minimum to organize an event too, so you don't just get spammers. Keep pressing tab to indent from VS Code. Doesn't work. Degree minimums for creating events. You would also want vetting of links inside the description of events. What other stuff? Yeah, I think just allowing them to put links in the description is fine. And then just have like the actual like link that's the this is where the event is happening link, and those can be separate. I've been told to show off my shirt real quick. I got this shirt from a thrift store. It's just boost it. Just boost it. TagPro. All right. Nothing to do with TagPro, but I decided it did. So yeah, that's it. All right. So what else do we need? I feel like that's probably enough of a starting point for a developer. This is a super high effort thing, if and when we get to it. But the event is just like Gravity Night with no VCs or anything, and it's just a public group. Do you say check the public group? Yeah, I think all you would do for that is say, okay, my link for my event is that right there. Boom, it's groups, and then you would go here and you would see. You can put emojis in this? Do we not sanitize this? I think we... Oh, no, that's in the next release. We have it fixed for sanitizing that. Sorry, that's going to get messed up. Sorry, Sunball 3. Or Sunball. That's interesting. Yeah, I think just having them put the groups link is fine for that. Because it'll show up there. If we need to get to a point where there are... This is a good problem to have, that the game is so popular, there are so many groups to pick from, then we could have like a... Like if you have an event approved, you can tie it to something and then it would just put it at the top. Or we can work... If that becomes a problem, a lot of other things are going really well, so I'll worry about it when we get there. Yeah, featured group, kind of that sort of thing. So I'm not gonna sweat about that right now. And I feel like that is good enough for me. So yeah, that's yeah. I'm gonna call that a win. That took longer than I thought it was going to, which is fine. I think I'm probably gonna call it there instead of moving on to the other thing. It's the same thing that we pushed off last week, which was the rotating substitutes in a 3v4 game. Which again, a lot of rabbit holes to go down with that one, and we're getting close to 2 hours, so I think I'm gonna call it at that. But let me just make sure I didn't forget anything from my checklist here before we call it done. That. I thought there was one other discussion that I had, but I can't remember what I was discussing. I talked about the resets between seasons, right? Like the mu and the sigma, the confidence and all that. Oh, neutral flag. Somebody had talked about... I think this is a comment on my post last week where I had posted the Future Group Friday video. I think Name333 suggested that for the clutch time implementation of neutral flag, we should trial a potato flag in clutch time for the team that is winning. So if there is a 1-point game, it goes to clutch time at the end, even if no matter which team has the flag, if you're winning or losing, if it's a 1-point game, it goes to clutch time. If you are the team that is winning, your flag becomes a potato flag, which explodes and pops your ball after a specified number of seconds. I would think like 10 seconds maybe. But if you are the losing team, it's just a standard flag. And so the reason that's relevant is because it allows for the handoff to still happen, where if you are the losing team, you can hand off to the enemy who hits it to your player who scores the flag, a classic handoff approach, but you allow the flag to pass through the team that is winning the game, but you don't just allow the team that's winning you don't force the team that's winning to hold forever or to try to find a way to spike, because they just have to live with the flag for 10 seconds and then it will pop them and the game will end and they will win. So I think that solution is a little more elegant than some of the other stuff we talked about. We need to win, let's turtle. That would also be a valid solution because you would get popped by the turtle check. So yeah, I think it would fix that slightly. So I think that's the right approach. I would need to build that. It should be a pretty easy build, but I think I'm leaning in that direction right now for season 1 neutral flag. But we'll test it. If it absolutely sucks, then we won't do it, obviously. But if you have other ideas for how we could handle clutch time with neutral flags, obviously feel free to reach out. We can have a chat and go from there. So that's all for me for this week. Thank you everyone who tuned in. A reminder, there's a form pinned in the chat here. I'm also going to put this on Reddit and in the YouTube comments section. Please fill out that form if you have any questions for me about anything TagPro related. I'd be happy to walk through that on stream. So thanks again for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend, and I will see you all later.